Hello, my name is Jesus Garcia, and this is my extra credit video for Java. So right now I'll be going over what is a class in Java. So a class is a user-defined blueprint or prototype from which objects are created. It represents a set of properties or methods that are common to all objects of one type. In general, class declarations can include multiple components such as modifiers. In modifiers, a class is a class that can be public or has default access. A class name, the name should begin with a initial letter. A superclass, the name of the class's parent, if any, preceded by the keyword extends. A class can only extend one parent. Interfaces, a comma separated list of interfaces implemented by the class, if any. It's preceded by the keyword implements. Class can implement more than one interface. And a body. The class body is surrounded by curly braces. Constructors are used for initializing new objects. Fields are variables that provides the state of the class and its objects, and methods are used to implement the behavior of the class and its objects. So there are various types of classes that are used in real-time applications, such as nested classes, anonymous classes, and lambda expressions. So now I'll be going over what is an object in Java. So an object is a basic unit of object-oriented programming and represents the real-life entities. A typical Java program creates many objects, which, as you know, interact by invoking methods. An object consists of three components: a state, which is represented by attributes of an object. It also reflects the properties of an object. The behavior, which is represented by methods of an object. It also reflects the response of an object with other objects. And the third, which is an identity. It gives a unique name to an object and enables one object to interact with other objects. So one example of an object is let's say a dog. So the identity would be the name of the dog. Its state/attributes would be, let's say, the breed or the age or the color. And the behavior, which would be whatever the dog does, such as bark, sleep, or eat. Objects correspond to things found in the real world. For example, a graphics program may have objects such as a circle, a square, or menu. An online shopping system might have objects such as a shopping cart, customer, and products. So to declare objects, when an object of a class is created, the class is said to be instantiated. All the instances share the attributes and the behavior of the class, but the values of those attributes, the state, are unique for each object. So a single class may have any number of instances. So now I'll be going over what's a method in Java. So a method is a collection of statements that perform some specific task and return the result to the caller. So a method can perform some specific task without returning anything. Methods allow us to reuse the code without retyping the code. In Java, every method must be part of some class, which is different from languages like C, C++, and Python. Methods are time savers and help us to reuse the code without retyping the code. So whenever I'll be going over 6 different components when it comes to method declaration. So a modifier defines access type of the method from where it can be accessed in your application. In Java, there are 4 types of access specifiers. One is public, which is accessible in all class in your application. Protected access type, which is accessible within the class in which is defined in its subclass or subclasses. Private is it's only accessible within the class in which it is defined. And default access, where it's accessible within the same class and package within which its class is defined. So another component to method declaration is the return type. The data type of the value returned by the method, or void if it does not return a value. The method name. The rules for field names apply to method names as well, but the convention is a little different. The parameter list, which is a comma separated list of the input parameters, are defined. It is preceded with their data type within the enclosed parentheses. If there are no parameters, you must use empty parentheses. The next component is the exception list. The exceptions you expect by the method can throw, you can specify these exceptions. And the method body, it is enclosed between braces. The code you need to be executed to perform your intended operations. So whenever you are naming a method, it is typically a single word that should be a verb in lowercase or multi-word. After the first word, the first letter of each word should be capitalized. For example, get number, you should write get in lowercase, and you should start number with the capital N. So that is a method in Java. Next, I'm gonna be going over a static keyword in Java. So static is a non-access modifier in Java, which is applicable to the following blocks, variables, methods, and nested classes. So to create a static member, you must precede its declaration with the keyword static. When a member is declared static, it can be accessed before any object of its class are recreated and without reference to any object. If you need to do a computation in order to initialize your static variables, you can declare a static block that gets executed once when the class is first loaded. So for static variables, when a variable is declared as static, a single copy of a variable is created and shared among all objects at class level. Static variables are global variables, so they can be used everywhere, and all instances of the class share the same static variable. So as for static methods, when a method is declared with static, it is known as a static method. The most common example of a static method is the main method. So any static member can be accessed before any objects of its class are created and without reference of any object. But these methods declared as static have multiple restrictions. They can only directly call other static methods, and they can only directly access static data. They also cannot refer to this or super in any way. So in order to use a static variable for the property that is common to all objects, for example, in the class of students, all students share the same college name. You can use static methods for changing static variables. So now I'm going to be going over inheritance in Java. Excuse me. So inheritance is an important pillar of object-oriented programming. It is the mechanism in Java by which one class is allowed to inherit the features of fields and methods of another class. So some important definitions when it comes to inheritance are superclass. The superclass is the class whose features are inheritance is known as superclass or a base class or a parent class. The subclass is another important word. Is defined as the class that inherits the other class is known as subclass, or a derived class, extended class, or child class. The subclass can add its own fields and methods in addition to the superclass fields and methods. And reusability, which is inheritance supports the concept of reusability. When we want to create a new class and there is already a class that includes some of the code that we want, we can derive our new class from the existing class. By doing this, we are reusing the fields and methods of the existing class. So the keyword used for inheritance is extends. So now I'm going to be going over some key rules when it comes to inheritance in Java. So the default superclass, except for object class, which has no superclass, every class has one and only one direct superclass, which is known as single inheritance. In the absence of any other explicit superclass, every class is implicitly a subclass of the object class. Superclasses can only be one, so a superclass can have any number of subclasses, but a subclass can have only one superclass. This is because Java does not support multiple inheritance with classes. Although with interfaces, multiple inheritance is supported by Java. So when it comes to inheriting constructors, a subclass inherits all the members, fields, methods, and nested classes from its superclass. Constructors are not members, so they are not inherited by subclasses, but the constructor of the superclass can be invoked from the subclass. When it comes to private member inheritance, a subclass does not inherit the private members of its parent class. However, the superclasses has public or protected methods, like getters and setters, for accessing its private fields. These can also be used by the subclasses. So now I'm going to be going over access modifiers in Java. So access modifiers in Java help to restrict the scope of a class, the constructor, the variable, and the methods or data members. There are 4 types of access modifiers available in Java. There is default, where no keyword is required. There's private access modifiers, protected access modifiers, and public access modifiers. So when it comes to default, they contain same class, same package subclasses, same package non-subclasses, but they do not have different package subclasses, and they also do not have different package non-subclasses. For private, they do hold the same class. They don't hold the same package subclasses. They don't have same package non-subclasses, or they also don't have different package subclasses or different package non-subclasses. So some additional important points when it comes to access modifiers. If other programmers use your class, you should try to use the most restrictive access level that makes sense for a particular member. It's always best to use private unless you have a good reason not to. We should also avoid public fields except for constants. So when it comes to protected, they have same class, same package subclass, same package non-subclass. They also have different package subclasses, but they do not have different package non-subclasses. When it comes to public, they have same class, same package subclass, same package non-subclass, same different package subclasses, and different package non-subclasses. So that is access modifiers. So next I will be going over overloading in Java. So overloading allows different methods to have the same name, but they have different signatures, where the signature can differ by the number of input parameters or type of input parameters, or both. Or overloading is related to compilation time or static polymorphism. So when it comes to overloading, some of the advantages are we don't have to create and remember different names for functions that do the same thing. Unfortunately, though, we cannot overload the return type. However, overloading methods on return type are possible in cases where the data type of the function being called is explicitly specified. We can overload static methods. We can have 2 or more static methods with the same name, but differences in input parameters. But we cannot overload 2 methods in Java if they differ only by static word. Number of parameters and types of parameters is even when they're the same. We can also overload the main method in Java. Java also doesn't allow user-defined overloaded operators. Um, Eternally Java overload operators, for example, the plus symbol is overloaded for concatenation. So that was overloading. Now we'll be going over overriding in Java. So if any OOP program language, in any OOP programming language, overriding is a feature that allows a subclass or child class to provide a specific implementation of a method that is already provided by one of its superclasses or parent classes. When a method in a subclass has the same name, same parameters or signature, and same return type or subtype as a method in a superclass, then the method in the subclass is said to override the method in the superclass. So method overriding is one of the way by which Java achieve runtime polymorphism. So the version of a method that is executed will be determined by the object that is used to invoke it. If any object or a parent class is used to invoke the method, then the version in the parent class will be executed. But if an object of the subclass is used to invoke the method, then the version in the child class will be executed. So there's a lot of rules when it comes to method overriding. So one of the rules is overriding and access modifiers. The access modifier for an overriding method can allow more but not less access than the overridden method. For example, a protected instance method in the superclass can be made public but not private in the subclass. Doing so will generate a compilation time error. Final methods can also they can't be overridden. Static methods cannot be overridden either. Private methods cannot be overridden, and the overriding method must have the same return type or subtype. Invoking overridden method from subclass, we can call parent class method an overriding method using the super keyword. We cannot override constructor as a parent, and child class can never have constructor with the same name. So the constructor name must always be the same as a class name. So when it comes to overriding and abstract method, abstract methods is an interface or abstract class are meant to be overridden in derived concrete classes. Otherwise, a compilation time error will be thrown. And the presence of synchronized modifiers with method have no effect on the rules of overriding. So that means it's possible that a synchronized method can override a non-synchronized one, and vice versa. So when it comes to overriding versus overloading, overloading is about the same method have different signatures. Overriding is about same method, same signature, but different classes connected through inheritance. And overloading is an example of a compiler time polymorphism, and overriding is an example of runtime polymorphism. Sorry. So that was overriding. Next is the abstract classes in Java. So if a class has at least in C++, if a class has at least one pure virtual function, then the class becomes abstract. But when it comes to Java, a separate keyword abstract is used to make a class abstract. So like in C++, in Java, an instance of an abstract class cannot be created. We can have references of an abstract class type though. An abstract class can also contain constructors in Java, and a constructor of abstract classes of an abstract class is called when an instance of an inherited class is created. In Java, we can have an abstract class without any abstract method. This allows us to create classes that cannot be instantiated, but can only be inherited. Abstract classes can also have final methods, which are methods that can't be overridden. Um, so that is an abstract class. So finally, we'll be going over interfaces in Java. So similar to a class, an interface can have methods and variables, but the methods declared in interfaces are by default abstract, which is only method signature and no body. So interfaces specify what a class must do and not. It's basically the blueprint of the class. An interface is about capabilities, like a player may be an interface, and any class implementing player must be able to move. So it specifies a set of methods that the class has to implement. So if a class implements an interface and does not provide method bodies for all the functions specified in the interface, then the class must be declared abstract. A Java library example is the comparator interface. So if a class implements this interface, then it can be used to sort a collection. So when it comes to declaring an interface, we must use the interface keyword. It is used to provide a total abstraction. To implement interface, we must use the implements keyword. So that is interfaces in Java, and this concludes my my video. Thank you.